Okay. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to a Tuesday, 4th of July edition of Morning Scone presented by Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic, Hudco Roofing, HudcoRoofing.com, Restored Motions, RestoredMotions.com, and ProCharge, ProChargeEV.com. All right, y'all. Appreciate everybody for being here. Thanks for being here on this Tuesday, on this 4th of July. A little lazy morning for the family Scone. Drew's still sleeping. It's 10:09 and Drew is still sleeping. I'll take it. How about it? Did y'all see? I hope everybody's got a fun day planned for the 4th if you're off for work. Hope everybody's off for work and just get a relaxing day. If you are working, God bless you. Go make that money, get it done. Obviously, no shows today for us on our lineup, but we'll all be back on there tomorrow. Did y'all see? So I have it in the in the description for today's episode. So I found this so interesting. I'm surprised it didn't get more run. So Brian Kelly did an interview with Blake Topmeyer. Blake Topmeyer used to work for, Blake covered Missouri and then he covered Tennessee. Now he's with Gannett, and USA Today owns Gannett or Gannett owns USA Today, whichever way it goes. But and so all of the Gannett papers, sometimes they'll pool stories that go on USA Today. Well, anyway, Blake Topmeyer had a sit down, a one-on-one with Brian Kelly. And he notes that this was in June, the interview. So the interview was some point last month, but they sat on it and they just published it yesterday. And it's just it is a transcript. It's not a story written around the interview. It's just a transcript of the interview. So question, answer, right? Anyway, so and they asked some stuff, about some of the stupid stuff, the culture and where you fit, and talked about the 2-point conversion against Alabama and why they decided to go for it, all that. So anyway, he did ask about the family thing, like, did you really say family? And then Blake Topmeyer asked, and this is the question that I have pinned in it, or I have in the description of today. He said, "When do you feel like this program will be ready to contend seriously for a national championship?" And I found that interesting because, his answer is fascinating. It's fascinating candor. Because I get asked a ton. We've talked about it a ton here, right? I mean, how many times do you all in the morning here point out Kim Mulkey year 2, Jay Johnson year 2, Brian Kelly year 2, Matt McMahon? I mean, like, how many of y'all point that out a ton? Like a lot of you have over the months. And so I know there's a segment of the fan base that have a national championship as an expectation for this year, as a realistic expectation. Brian Kelly does not. Here's what he said, quote, "We need another year of recruiting. One more really good year on both sides of the ball, I think, puts us in a position where I think year 3, the consistency piece, the depth of our program, the messaging, all the things we do on a day-to-day basis puts us in a position to compete for a championship." He goes on, "Year 2, the foundation is in place. I think there's a really good confidence within this group. We've got good players. There's some holes. There's a little air coming out of the tire here and there. I think we've kind of patched most of it, but I think year 3 is probably the year where I'll feel in terms of building a program, we've had enough time to really put the pieces together." So he twice says year 3 and even alludes to year 2, the foundation's in place and we have confidence, but we've still got holes. So Brian Kelly is saying not this year, next year. Here's the odd thing. So I flatly disagree with him. I disagree completely with him. And I think in years past, there would have been validity to that thought. Nick Saban won a title here in year 4. Saban won his first title at Bama in year 3. Les won his title here in year 3. Ed won his title here in year 3. So there's a lot of validity to that, to needing 3 years to build and put the pieces in place and have the consistency and messaging and all that he says is true. The variable that has changed, obviously, and you all know it, is the transfer portal. Without the transfer portal last year, LSU is a 4 or 5 win football team. Flatly. You'd have no Jaden Daniels. You would have had no. Let's just look at Jaden Daniels, of course, would be the most significant. But let's just look also at the defensive side of the ball, in which you had last year. You would have had no Jarp Bernard Converse, no Mekhi Garner, no Greg Brooks, no Joe Fouché. You would have had no Mekhi Wingo. Oh my God! Like think about that. Like your major contributors defensively were all transfers, especially after Mason Smith blew out his knee. You would have had no Miles Frazier, who became a starter on the interior of your offensive line for you. Noah Kane, Kyron Lacey. Y'all, I mean, last year without the transfer portal, you were a disaster. But instead, you win 10 games and win the SEC West and beat Alabama because of the portal. So everything's accelerated. So you go into this year, and because you get, you return, what was it, 90? Hang on, I want to look it up. ESPN does their returning production rankings. Let's see. LSU's like 10th in the country in returning production on offense. Now, defense, not as much. LSU is, let's see, offensively, I think that's like 32nd overall. LSU's 32nd, yeah, they're 10th in returning production offensively with 81% of their production returning. Now, defense, they return only 60%, so LSU's 72nd in returning defensive production. But that's because you're losing Joe Fouché and Jarp Bernard Converse and Mekhi Garner and Micah Baskerville. So you're losing a lot of those guys. B.J. Ojolari, Ali Gay. You're losing a lot of those guys. But the flip side of it is you don't need a full, you don't need recruiting cycles to replace them, because you went this year and you signed 4 interior defensive linemen that all already played a ton. You signed Omar Speights, who's an all Pac-12 interior linebacker. You replaced all your cornerbacks, obviously, but you replaced them with younger dudes that are probably more talented than the ones you had last year. So I just flatly disagree. And by the way, the schedule flips in your favor. Yes, you have to play at Alabama, but you get Florida, A&M, and Auburn all at home. Your road league games are against the Mississippi schools. Yes, Alabama, and then Missouri. So yeah, this is the next year. Y'all, next year, your schedule in 24, when you lose Jaden Daniels, you're going to lose Jaden Daniels. You're going to lose Malik Neighbors, probably losing Brian Thomas. Kyron Lacey's done. You're probably losing Charles Turner, Miles Frazier, Garrett Dellinger. Mason Smith is probably gone. Omar Speights is in his last year. Greg Brooks is in his last year. You get my point. You're losing a ton after this year. And, oh, by the way, you open up against USC in Vegas. UCLA comes to Baton Rouge. Yes, Bama comes here, but you got to go to Florida, to A&M, to Auburn. No, you don't play Auburn next year. Oklahoma comes here. Your next 24, brutal schedule after losing a ton off of this team. So this is your year. LSU got the 5th best championship odds this year. This is your year. You better go compete for it. This is your year. You might have been early last year, but no, this is the one. So anyway, how about that little 4th of July rant to start your day? Cheers, everybody. Let me know what y'all think. Say some good mornings here. Scott Beckham, Kelly Gross, Tanner Smith, happy 4th. Carl Van Bergen, happy 4th. Made it back to the States safely. Okay. Newfound appreciation for our country despite its flaws. I think Kelly's comments may be motivational. I don't think that, look, Carl, some people have said that. I posted that I posted a screenshot of that transcript on Twitter, and I was like, thoughts? And a lot of it is Brian Kelly sandbagging. He's trying to motivate his team. Cautious optimism. I'm like, I don't think so. Brian Kelly is and has been during his time here refreshingly candid. I think he's telling you what he thinks, but and he knows his team better than we do. But he may also not be looking ahead to next year, because next year, like on paper, looks brutal. Trey Fisher, David Coslin, Devin Barris, Erica Keller, Moscona. Oh, she commented to Fish. Okay, Iraq's watching. Iraq's in the bathtub. Right there. On the other side of this wall is our. Samuel Merrifield, does LSU have a shot for pitcher Holman from Alabama? How good is he? Absolutely they do. So if you remember, so you're talking about Luke Holman. If you don't remember this story, Luke Holman is the starter. He was their Friday guy for Bama this year. He was their guy who was scratched when that's when the bet was placed against Alabama and got Brad Bohannon fired. So you remember the story, Alabama's coach got fired for basically tipping off a bet against his team and whatever. It was when they scratched Luke Holman against Paul Skeens, which didn't really change the odds of the game at all because it was still Paul Skeens against Luke Holman. Anyway, so he's Bama's Friday guy, was this year, but don't get it twisted. He's not an ace. Luke Holman is not, he's a good pitcher with a lot of experience, but how about this? Think in terms of what Mikhail Hilliard was for LSU last year. He was the Friday guy out of necessity, but that's not an insult to Mikhail. That's more of a commentary on the state of the pitching staff a year ago. If Mikhail Hilliard was your number 3, if Mikhail Hilliard was the number 3 on this team, like if you had gone Skeens, Floyd, Hilliard, okay. Now Hurd ultimately emerged in that role, I know, but throughout the course of the season, you'd be like, okay. But Hilliard, as your Friday guy, spoke to a lot of your deficiencies, right? So Holman threw 81 innings this year, had a 3.67 ERA. He struck out 87 in 81 innings pitched. So you see what I mean? Like, he's a good SEC pitcher. Just finished his sophomore year. He's a 6'4" righty. So if you get Luke Holman, great. But I think if you get Luke Holman, you're bringing him in here. You're bringing him in here not to be the front of the rotation guy. Like, that's Thatcher Hurd next year. So Holman, if he comes in here, would be your number 2 or 3 at best. No Sweat Sports, what's going on? Oh, let's get a little good emoji. David Gilmore, Donald Amy, Dalton Barnett, good morning. Russell Doloff, good morning. Matt Plavidal, good morning. Thought someone said the reason Yeski didn't come with Jay was because he was hired 2 weeks prior at A&M when Jay was hired at LSU. Not 2 weeks. I don't know who said that, but so if you missed it, yesterday I had Jay Johnson on AFR. Really good convo. And he was great. I mean, he talked about basically like trespassing at Charles Schwab Field the next day. Went to bed at like 4:30 after the title, only slept for a couple hours, got up, went back to Charles Schwab Field, just like sat in the dugout and soaked it all in. Really cool. It was a cool convo. But he talked about Yeski. I told you I was going to ask. And I'm glad I looked it up, because when I was looking up the date that Yeski was announced at A&M and the date that it started to leak that Jay was getting the LSU job, it was the same day. So, but you got to keep in mind, there's a difference between word leaking and then an announcement. So basically what had happened, and Jay told the story, was, well, actually, if y'all are for it, hang on, I'll play you his answer. Hang on. Let's see. Here you go.
Timeline piece as well, because I was looking it up today. Looking at the apart, took the LSU.
Sorry.
Man, I've been waiting like 2 years to talk about this. So you're getting this first. Timing was the only thing that screwed it up beforehand, and we were in Omaha. Texas A&M had hired Coach Schlossnagel before LSU had hired me. And so he had reached out to Nate and was talking to Nate, and they were well down the road prior to me being named. And this was like, with me, this all happened very fast and very quickly. And it was just, frankly, I was a day too late of being named. Nobody's fault. We were in the College World Series. And so I had already known he was going to College Station the day before to meet with him. And so as soon as I was hired or it was announced, I picked up the phone and called him. And frankly, it was too late. And then it may have gotten off to a good start at Texas A&M, so it just didn't feel right last year. But, we were probably a day away from him being here from the outset. So I'm really happy to have him now.
How about that? A day away. So like if you're Yeski 2 years ago, he's got the bird in hand with A&M. And it's like, man, but Jay's interviewing for LSU. Do I wait? Well, if you wait and Jay doesn't get the LSU job and A&M moves on, then I've lost that opportunity. So Yeski took the A&M job, and then Jay got the LSU job a day later. That's what happened. So we get answers here. That's what we do. Anyway, Jason H., good morning. From the parade route, getting ready for 4th of July celebration. Okay, y'all be safe out there. Jesse Brown, good morning. I put my house on the market, moving close to home, Central Time Zone, and Saints on TV. All right, Jesse. Hey, when you move here, do you need a realtor? Call Darren James. 335-7666, 335-7666, or agent225.com. Agent225.com. No Sweat Sports. His answer is interesting, especially considering LSU is historically at its best in odd number seasons. Well, there is also some validity there when you look at the 4-year cycle. 2003, 2007, 2011, when they lost the championship game. 15, if you remember Fournette, I mean, they'd already engraved Fournette's name on the Heisman. I mean, LSU was number 1 in the first CFP rankings, and then it kind of fell apart late. And then 19. So now here you go 4 years later, 23. So there is something to be said for that. There's a large enough sample size now to where you could look at LSU and go, okay, every 4 years it makes sense. The one difference is LSU won't be playing in the Superdome this year. Let's see. Austin Kidder, good morning. What do you think of Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk fighting? Don't laugh. It will be the biggest pay-per-view ever by a landslide. Are they really fighting? Like, they're going to do like a boxing match or something? I hadn't heard about that. Cameron Scholl, what's up? QWERTY, what's up? James Charles, good morning. What can be done to listen to 100.3? The entire greater New Orleans area is mostly static. Most of us would love to hear OTB AFR on the other shows. So James, the signal is actually good. I'll clarify. The tower is in La Rose, and I know it recently got struck by lightning, so that might have taken its power down a bit. But it kind of depends where you are that you can hear it. But when you can't catch 100.3, you can always stream us. And I will say we're always looking for expansion options as well. So thank you for listening and trying to listen when you can. Just know that we're always looking for those options. Edward O., Nuss Bus Driver, let's win it all this year and next year. I'm here for it. Let's do it. The Natty this year is in Houston, by the way. So I am, you want to talk about what becomes a de facto LSU home game again? I mean, LSU's largest alumni base outside of Louisiana is in Houston. So that, and then it's a 4-hour drive. You better believe LSU fans would just go take over. So I'm here for it. Let's see. Louisiana Sports King of the Bayou. What does that even mean? The QWERTY. What does that mean? What's your prediction for Texas Longhorns? I haven't looked at Texas's schedule. I'll be way more interested in Texas next year whenever they're in the SEC. Let's look at the schedule. I'll bite. Okay, open up against Rice, should win that. At Alabama, be very telling. Had Bama on the ropes last year, but no Bryce Young. That's a big challenge. I think it's a big challenge for Bama this year. But probably you're gonna be an underdog. Probably lose that one. Wyoming at home. Okay, at Baylor, Kansas, Oklahoma, Oh, I forgot. At Houston. Oh, wow. I forgot. The Big 12 kind of stuck it to Texas. They're making them go to Houston in Houston's first year in the Big 12. That's like a little brother thing. So it's like, yeah, you're gonna go on the road to Houston in their first year in the Big 12 before you leave for the SEC. BYU, Kansas State, at TCU, at Iowa State, Texas Tech. I mean, if LSU had this schedule, I'd be doing backflips because I'm thinking, all right, LSU's going to waltz into the national championship game, into the playoff. But yeah, it's hard to bet on Texas, man. They're always hyped and they never live up to the expectations. So I just got to say, man, prove it. You got a manageable schedule to prove it. Devin Kelly, good morning. Matty Boy, Baby Drew, and E-Rock, happy 4th. Weller Special Reserve was excellent. I see why Weller's your jam. And wait till you try the other ones, too. Special Reserve is sort of like if it's tiered, that would be like the first one, right? And then you've got like 107, 12, CYPB, foolproof, single barrel. So the full vertical set of Wellers are awesome. Yeah, man. Weeded bourbon. Let's see. Joshua Eastill, morning from San Diego. We think Kelly's comments are trying to reset expectations a little bit after an unexpected solid year last year. I just don't think so, man. I think he's being candid. I do. And maybe it's his acknowledgement of where they still have some holes. But tell you what, man. Better do it this year. Brian Turner, good morning, Matt. How does Will Campbell hold up in round 2 versus Jared Verse? Much better. Yeah, so Jared Verse is the great rush end from Florida State who transferred in last year. And everybody thought was going to go pro and decided to come back for another season at Florida State. So, man, y'all forget that game against Florida State last year. I mean, Garrett Dellinger was your starting center. Emory Jones hadn't been inserted in the starting lineup yet. Will Campbell was starting the first game as a true freshman at left tackle. Yeah, man. I mean, was quite a challenge. Harold Perkins didn't. I don't know if he didn't play, but he certainly didn't play. 60% of the defensive snaps like he ended up doing. Bubba Tatum, morning sconers, brisket, ribs, pork belly, burnt ends on the smoker. Happy 4th. Be safe and blow some stuff up. Blow up fireworks. Don't blow up yourself or any property. How about that? Carl the Cat. LSU fan. What's going on, Kyle Milliken, Brad David? What is one thing you hope to learn at SC Media Days about any team? It's a good question. I always like to there it is, sorry. I'm always interested in the new head coaches in the league. So this year, unless there's someone I'm leaving off, Zach Arnett is the only one. Of course, because Mike Leach tragically died. So, I'm always interested in how the new coaches handle it. So Zach Arnett will be interesting to me. And then I think my belief is that every school should be required to bring their quarterback. So, a lot of the star power from a year ago is not going to be there. Bryce Young will be there, obviously. Stetson Bennett came last year. Remember, he was coming off of a national title and ended up winning another as a starting quarterback. Will Levis was there, who was getting a lot of first-round draft love. So you had, you had some star power there. Like Will Anderson came last year. So who really are going to be the stars this year that captivate a lot of the attention? I think will be interesting. Now, specifically about any team, I don't know necessarily that I've given that a ton of thought. I think it's more, you could tell sometimes a degree of confidence with teams. And honestly, the thing that I love most about media days is getting to tell stories and getting to know players that you otherwise would never get to know. Like here, I'll give you an example. Um, Brian Edwards, who's a receiver for the New Orleans Saints now, who was at South Carolina. Brian Edwards so he was at media days, and he went into his final season at South Carolina with every one of their schools' receiving records in sight. Now, I think he got hurt and didn't play the final game against Clemson, unfortunately, and maybe fell short of some of those records. But it was fascinating to talk to this guy that was a really, really impactful guy in the history of that program that most people, I would say, don't know. And so now Brian Edwards goes in the league, and then the Saints sign him, and I got this great background on this guy, and I'm pretty excited for him and about him. There's always those kinds of stories. I remember talking to Ventrell Miller, the linebacker from Florida, and he was so impressive. There's always those. There was a receiver from Vanderbilt from New Orleans who what year was that? It was Kalijah Lipscomb. That's who it was. It was Kalijah Lipscomb. And so I got to have this conversation with this Vanderbilt wide receiver about growing up in New Orleans and watching LSU and, growing up playing Park League ball in New Orleans. Like all that kind of stuff is just, I find that fascinating. You get to know a lot of the player stuff. And then, sometimes you learn stuff too. Like, I'll tell you, last year, like Alabama looked like a team on a mission. I thought they were going to wreck the league last year, and they didn't live up to it. Unfortunate for them. Let's see. Zuckerberg and Elon are going to fight in the UFC? No way. Reed Travelstead, heard football will be getting some recruits today. Have you heard anything about that? No, I haven't, man. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. I'm just saying, like, I don't really like pound the pavement trying to break recruiting news. That's not really my thing. So I hope they do. I'd love to see. Love to talk about it. Hey, Brennan Huff just got fireworks from Tom Plays. Very nice guy. He even threw in free stuff for the kids. I did not ask him to. Why didn't you ask him to sing the intro? Like, you got to tell him that. you should have at least told him that that Scone sent you. Oh well. Yeah, so Toby Tomplay, who is does the After Further Review theme, and of course also the
When you need a roof, call someone you know. Scone and Terrio. All you need is hardcore. Call Hardcore Roofing. 364
That is Toby Tomplay. And so Toby and Shelly have a fireworks stand that for 4th of July and for New Year's. And it's Tomplay's Fireworks on Highway 42 in Prairieville. So if you turn off an airline onto 42, you go like a quarter mile on the right, they got a big giant inflated gorilla. Like, you can't miss it. Like, you literally can't miss it. It's a giant inflated gorilla by a fireworks stand on 42. So go and tell him to sing the AFR jingle. He will. He'd love to. Or the AFR theme. He'd love to, I'm sure. Or the Hudco jingle. I'm sure he'd love to do either. Do you really think Les was going to get fired in 2010 if T-Bob didn't snap the ball versus Tennessee? Yes. Yes. Maybe not that game, but that year, yes. Because I'll tell you flatly, there was a move to fire him in 2009 after the Clockett game, but Bobby Jindal, who was then the governor, stepped in because it was going to cost something like $15 million to buy out Les's deal. Remember, they win the championship in 7. He gets a new deal. And then 8, in 08, remember the defense sucked. with the Malvito experiment. And so they fire those guys and then hire Chavis. In '09 was Chavis's first year, but they had the Clockett game. So, I mean, it was a very similar circumstance to what happened with Ed. Won the championship, face plant year after the championship, halfway through the next year, they fired him. But Bobby Jindal is the one who stepped in and was like, you can't, because funding in higher ed was so bad. It was such a huge debate at the time of the state. He didn't like the optics of paying a coach $15 million of a buyout when they were having this huge debate at the Capitol on state funding for higher ed. So even though it's private dollars versus state dollars, people still don't always understand that. So, yeah, I mean, it almost happened in '09, and it would have happened in 2010. But they rallied, beat Alabama in 2010, went on, won the Cotton Bowl, beat A&M, and then just used that as a springboard in 2011, which was awesome. Let's see, Leon Williams, Keith Neal, happy 4th, and happy birthday, Eli. Yeah, happy birthday to Eli. So y'all met Eli on vacation, my little nephew. Eli is born on the 4th of July. So today is Eli Anderman's, Eli's a teenager today. Oh my God. Eli was born July 4th, 2010. My goodness. Eli Anderman is a teenager today. And yesterday, Reese Anderman, my niece, got her driver's license. Oh my God. Life comes at you quickly. Let's see, Reed Rule, happy 4th. Anything new on Emery? Nope. And I'm sure we'll get something. He'll be asked 100 times. Brian Kelly will about John Emery at Media Day, so we'll get something there. Conan's Mojo, I think Kelly has a hold on this team now, and they'll be playing for it all this year. You know, Conan's Mojo, if they don't, I think the pitfall is losing at Bama and maybe losing a tiebreaker, or even if they get to the SEC championship game, losing to Georgia there. I think those would be the only things that keep them out of the playoff this year. 12-team playoff, it would be a no-brainer. They'd be in it this year, absolutely. But for this LSU team, they really have to beat Florida State week 1. Because if you lose to Florida State week 1, you leave yourself no margin for error. If you lose to Florida State and then lose to Bama, you're a 2-loss team. No 2-loss teams ever made the playoff. So you got to go win week 1. You got to win week 1, and then you give yourself a little bit of wiggle the rest of the way. Less is more. In 2023, girls b-ball went to the Final Four and won. My wife and I were there. Baseball won CWS. Wife and I were there. If football goes, we'll be there. So obviously we're going to win. I love it. I wish it were that easy. Amy Robert, still basking in the baseball national championship. Mike Simon for football is not even here yet. Feel like we have a Nick Saban type coach in Jay. Baseball is my new favorite LSU sport to follow. Okay, very cool, Brennan. Told him, heard about it on your show. Just didn't ask him, saying gotcha. Glock never jammed. Shout out to Andrew Hatch. Oh God, Andrew Hatch. Isn't that a great illustration of what happened in 2008? Well, the greatest what if in LSU history is what if Nick Saban had never left. But I would also say secondary to that would be what if Ryan Perilou didn't get booted from the team in 2008? Because you would have had Perilou in as your starter in 2008, the year after the Natty. And yes, the defense was bad, but you ended up having to play Hatch and then redshirt freshman Jarrett Lee, and that was, of course, all the interceptions and everything. Maybe Perilou has a great season, and then Lee never has to play young and is a more veteran player when he takes over and is much better suited to do so. We never see Jordan Jefferson play as a freshman in 2008 at the end of the season, if that's the case. There's a lot of, you know what I mean? There's a lot of those what ifs had Perilou not gotten booted. Conan's Mojo, what are we drinking today? Probably not much, man. Tomorrow's a work day for me. So, I mean, we're having a little birthday party for Eli a little later. I mean, maybe by the pool I might have a little tequila, but not much. Not much of anything today. Unfun fact, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died on this day in 1826. Okay, interesting. They died on the same day? 2 former presidents died on the same day. Interesting. Actually, I should say the same date. July 4th, 1826. That's interesting. Because it would be less interesting if they died on the same day in different years, but on the same date, that is interesting. Let's see. LSU can lose to Bama, still win the West. I think a 2-loss SEC champ is in. It's never happened before, bro. And how does that 2-loss look? And how does the rest of the country look? Like, do you have 4 undefeated conference champs or 3 undefeated conference champs and a 1-loss? I'm telling you, man, we've seen it before. Penn State won the Big Ten, beat Ohio State, but Ohio State got in as a 1-loss team when Penn State, I think, had 2 or 3 losses. But even still, they won their league and had a head-to-head against Ohio State, and Ohio State got in. If he never gets hurt, the whole history change. Oh, Hatch. No. Lars Corville, what's going on? Let's see. Jump back over here to Facebook. My apologies for those that I am late getting to. Hey, Aunt Sharon, good morning. Have a great 4th. Tony Cortello, Samuel Merrifield, how elite will Ricky Collins be, if at all? I think he could be great. Just got to give him time. Quentin Brakebill, Kerry Hughes, would the 2024 schedule be more difficult than the 2019 schedule? Off the top of my head, I'd say yes. I would say yes, for sure. What time is hot dog eating contest? I don't know, man. I don't really ever watch that. Nicole Havard, Charlie Gale, Craig Digga. Matt, is it appropriate to start and end the day with Yacht Rock? If it's wrong, I don't want to be right. I say you do you, Craig. I just can't say that I'm a big Yacht Rock fan, but you do you. Have you tried 2022 Four Roses LE? Nope. I have 2017 and I have 2020. And then when I was in New Orleans last summer for our bus tour and we went to Avenue Pub, I tried 2 different flights. So it was 8 years of Four Roses LEs, like 1 ounce pours. But it was like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 is kind of what I think how it went. Samuel, love the Riley Cooper interview. I think he'll get drafted and signed. Yeah, he said he wants to sign, so he wants to start his pro career. He'll get picked. So a lefty throwing 93 who's got a lot of innings on his arm and maybe not a high ceiling, but when guys are determined just to start their pro career, they'll probably have the opportunity to do it. So yeah, you've probably seen Riley Cooper throw his last pitch for LSU. Parallel, yes, okay. Lars Corville, next season SC championship loser will be irrelevant for making the playoffs. Amen. 11 o'clock for the hot dog eating contest. That's coming up. Let's see. Austin, Les Miles would have never developed play calling PTSD at Parallel State earlier. Either. That's true. Very true. That's a big misconception, Austin. Remember 2007, hired Gary Croton. They called him the Wizard. They were wide open offensively. They were wide open offensively in 2008 as well. And then Lee threw all the interceptions and Les went into a shell. He's like, I'm just never losing that way again. Hot dog eating contest makes me want to vomit. I'd die if I was in that contest. I know, I'm with you, man. Like, I have no desire to watch people shove hot dogs and buns into their throats. Anyway, okay, we're done. Y'all have a great 4th. If you're on YouTube there, 156 watching, only 32 likes. We could do better than that. Please smash that like button, subscribe up to the channel. As always, shout out to Brock. Remember, Brock Rock and Wine is coming up on July 29th. Get your tickets, brortho.com, brortho.com. And, all right, Hutco Roofing. A lot of people are already getting their scopes of work. Insurance adjusters have been out after that hailstorm in West Baton Rouge. We'd love to help you out. Hutco Roofing, hutcoroofing.com. Okay, Y'all have an awesome day. Thanks so much for watching. Be safe, and we'll see you. Peace.